I remember we did an enduro, a 1 hour enduro
Mhm.
with NASA at Pocono,
Okay.
and it's like a roll kind of deal. So Jim and I were hauling butt, nose to tail the whole way. We would draft by 3 times, I think, down the straightaways. And Brian uh, Casella, the son of the owner that runs NASA Northeast,
Mhm.
he was standing at the pit out. He's like, "You two clowns, every freaking lap, we're shifting at exactly the same point, exactly the same time."
Spec cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was incredible.
All right. You sure you will? Well, you didn't give me the Wayne's World countdown. 5, 4. Hey guys, Dave Smith, and this is the Factory 5 podcast, Solid Car Guys. I have a great guest today. You know, if you know Factory 5, it's racing, Factory 5 racing. From day one, we've been racing our cars, and we've been lucky to have scientists, engineers, race drivers who have been able to give us great feedback on our cars. One of them here is John George. John, thanks for taking your time. You're out in Europe now. You probably spent 10 years racing with us.
12.
Uh, tw- Give us a background. I mean, we started out with the Challenge Series, with the Cobra Spec Series, right?
Yep.
And give me a background of what you've done with Factory 5. I want to drill down heavily on the Gen 3 Coupe because that's where I think we got the most learning and the most performance.
Mhm.
And then I want to talk about kind of the road ahead. I know that for you guys at home, you know, when you have an engineering group that is doing development on a race chassis, the hardest thing is to find a driver that can communicate to the engineers feedback on the car.
Mhm.
Um, if I go out, I'll say, yeah, the car's a little loose. Well, maybe I put that feedback into the car, right? John is a great scientist, great engineer, and really a fantastic driver. He's able to communicate with our engineers. You wonder why we're so close with Logano is because he's a scientist and he can give us really good feedback.
Mhm.
His drift truck, we learned a ton on that thing. So step me through John George. How did you even stumble into Factory 5 and how do we start this relationship?
Oh,
Yeah,
where do I
right.
start? I was watching racing on TV, into it, all the IMSA stuff, or back then it was something else, but not IMSA, Formula One. And my dad's like, dude, you're constantly in front of the TV. Like, you love this stuff so much. Let's let's do something about it. So I'm like, all right, sweet. Initially,
Had
I'm
you
like,
ever raced in your life up to that
no,
point?
never, never.
So pure amateur racing.
Pure amateur.
All
I'm
right.
like, I know Corvettes are fast. I want a Corvette. So then we started looking at it and we're like, oh, that's expensive. And it's not easy to fix. And you got to go to people to get it fixed. So my pop,
What year was this? Like 05, 06, 07?
no, not even.
Earlier than that.
2000, 2001, 2002. I bought the kid in 2003. So anyway, dad's like, hey, let's build a car. Because if we build it, we know how to fix it. And you're going to crash it. So you might as well know how to put it back together.
Gotcha.
So we looked around, and luckily you guys are in Massachusetts. So I was in New Hampshire. Um, Found out about it. I went, and that's where I met Gary Cheney the first time to
Gotcha. Yep.
NHIS.
Yep.
And I checked out the cars. They were freaking like, holy cow, this is pretty awesome. Cheney, he's like, oh, you want to buy one of these, huh? Hop in, drive it around the pits. I'm like, really?
Was this at New Hampshire International?
Yeah, at New Hampshire International.
All right.
I think
So
Dave Ria was there, Jim, I think, and Cheney.
that
Just like
had
a
to be
track
oh
day. 03,
03. It had to be 03, 04, like in that time period.
oh
Maybe
three,
02,
oh
03.
three,
Yeah.
exactly 03, because in November 03, I bought the kit.
All right, that makes total sense. So
Yeah.
you got in with us right as we were at the headwaters of the Challenge Series.
Yep.
'02 was our first year. Our first inaugural race was at VIR. We
Yep.
had, I think, 8 cars. Jim drove in it.
Yep.
Him and I flipped a coin who's going to drive first, right? We had a bunch of customers, but Cheney joined the Challenge Series in '03.
Yeah.
I think the '03 Nationals were at, let me think, '03 was,
In
yeah, '02 was at
Vegas or something,
Sonoma. We
right?
had 25 cars in Sonoma, right? In '03 was at Vegas.
Yep.
And Cheney, who is not a great race driver, I think he got third place. Brian Dobbins kind of
Yeah.
got past him in the
Or
last couple
second
laps.
place or something. He
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 was
was
third.
way up there.
Yeah, Spencer passed him or
Yeah.
Brian passed him. But the bottom line
Okay.
is Cheney had a challenge car. Now
Yeah.
that was Mustang horsepower, right?
Mhm.
225 horse, 300 foot-pounds of torque. The cars were not slow. They were quick,
Mhm.
but they didn't have that top speed.
Right.
So you got in In the early days of us
in
road
the early
racing
days. But
professionally.
so I finished building the car in 2005.
Right.
So and then I went to Lime Rock. I went to Skip Barber, got my race license,
Mhm.
and then right in NASA, right in the
Wow.
Challenge Series. And my
And
first race was at VIR at Nationals, 2005.
2005 Nationals was your
Yeah,
first race? How'd you
32
do?
Cobras.
Yeah.
How did I do? I finished 10th.
For an amateur racer, that's pretty
Yeah.
good, but
The
NASA
brakes were all
was
screwed up. The rears were locking up. I didn't set them right. Like the bracket was bent or something.
right.
Something was screwed up. So it was like
Yeah,
doing
but you were
weird
bitten
stuff.
by the bug at that
Oh
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And how long did you run that car? Because '05 Nationals VIR, I can tell you that we had the old spec,
Yeah.
the 225 horse Mustang motor, cast iron heads, cast iron block. Remember the hyper-eutectic pistons?
I was
Um,
lucky because I got one of those stock crate motors, the 5.0 crate motors from Ford,
oh, from Ford because they were
like the
doing the
last
302
ones.
and the
Yeah.
306, the
And
remans.
that engine lasted me like 2 or 3 years. It ran flawlessly, no issues whatsoever. And then I overheated it and downhill from there.
Yeah, but that was why we loved that engine so
Oh,
much
yeah.
because it just didn't make
Super
enough power to
reliable.
hurt itself, right? And you
Yeah.
could hot rod it. So you ran, and then you ran the Challenge Series, and NASA was such a great home because at the time I was looking for a place for a series, a sanctioning
Mm.
body, and NASA stepped up. I talked to Jerry Koonsman,
Yeah.
and he really believed in the concept.
Yeah.
It's a vintage Cobra, and a lot of guys would look at us back then and say, "Hey, is it a good race car or not?" Yeah, it was a good race car. We were running lap times with a first gen spec racer similar to American Stand Lap Records SCCA. So it was a fast car, a quick car, not fast. You got in the series.
What sold me was
Tell
it's
me,
a
as
spec
you're
series.
you're an amateur racer though, and you
Yeah.
didn't end up that way because you've run some lap times that are Trans Am capable. You're a damn good driver, but that first 5 years, that was Challenge Series, right? Did you do anything else? So you stayed with us.
Yep. 100%.
What are some of your best memories of that first 5 years of racing?
Just learning how to race. I had so battles everywhere in the back of the field because I was slow back
Mhm.
then. Me and Brian Sanders,
I remember Brian Sanders out of Ohio.
dude,
Yeah.
him and I back and forth the whole time. It was incredible. And then I started slowly getting faster and faster. We started doing the data stuff, the data loggers with I think it was a G2X, race pack, whatever.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Um, what was cool about it is a bunch of other guys had the same stuff, and me, I'm an IT guy, so I like the computer stuff. So I was looking at the data, and then I figured out how to compare my data with Jim's data, with Dave's data, Dave Ria,
Mhm.
with Brian Sanders,
Right.
with all those guys. So I was doing like freaking, race data logger analysis stuff, and the whole group as a whole, because we're sharing the data and analyzing it and looking at it and trying to figure out how to improve every session, everyone got faster. It was really neat.
This is
Really
a
neat.
it's a story of Factory 5 though,
Yeah.
because you're racing. I mean, wheel to wheel racing with Dave Ria, who is an engineer here,
Yeah.
with Jim, who is an engineer here, and he was in charge of the series,
Yeah.
and he's also in the series.
Yeah.
So, Factory 5 has always been kind of like, do it yourself, build it yourself, drive it yourself. But you kind of rose up through the ranks by
Mm.
when did you start really winning races? 2010, maybe? 9? I saw you on the podium.
2008, 2009. It was quick, you know.
I think maybe the data logger helped. What do you think helped your progression the most? Because I think it's intelligence. I think racing today is not bravado. It's not the guy with the
Yeah.
biggest, it's the guy
Well, it's
who
data logger setting the car up to how I like to drive it, and Jim helped tremendously.
we got to, as we're talking, we got to
Yeah.
pull, Mad Dog, we can pull some files of John at VIR at Summit Point. I remember
Yeah.
you just about every track you ran, you filmed.
Yeah. The older videos are on Vimeo, and you can download those as well.
Dave, the
So
cool thing with John is he drives like a cowboy. He's loose all the time. And I
yeah,
think that really helped us because you can't do that with a car that's not real neutral.
no.
So as you advance through the Challenge
Well,
Series,
I like sawing at the wheel.
yeah.
Mark Doherty's like, dude, you're a freaking sawhorse. Just working the wheel, finding the grip.
But the first gen cars weren't like that. Um, you had snap oversteer, that four link. Wait, you never
No,
drove a
no.
four
I
link
had
car.
snap oversteer because I didn't have power steering. And Jim's like, dude, stop with the weight stuff, put the power steering on, you'll stop spinning. And I did that. Lo and behold, I stopped spinning. We were
So
on the Kumos with 3-link.
that's right before Toyo was
Yeah,
Kumo.
yeah.
I think that those early days is kind of where you and Jim forged your friendship,
Yeah,
and he realized what a talented not just racer but engineer, and you were also good at feedback. When you told Jim about a car, it
yeah,
was legit. It wasn't kind of what you thought. It was really what was happening with the car. Because after the Challenge Series, I know we leaned heavily on you for the development of the Gen 3 Coupe.
yeah.
And so finish out your Challenge Series years and lead into the Coupe, because that's really where we did our most
Right.
high speed testing and aero stuff and some pretty advanced race development.
So after the challenge series, it kind of, I don't know what happened, the microeconomic blah blah
Yeah, we
blah.
stopped putting money into it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
too. The whole economy kind of dived, and people were just not showing up. So I'm like, what do I do now? So I started looking at another class. It was ST2 in
Yep.
NASA, which is a power to weight ratio, and I was up against Corvettes, Mustangs, whatever, Mazdas, all that stuff.
I
And
remember that was American
yeah,
Iron, American Iron Extreme. You were running with some fast cars, that
right.
CTS
So
Cadillac.
because it was power to weight, you had to get more power. So wait, sorry. The challenge series, right? It went from 220 horse to
335 or
the
something.
335,
Yep.
which was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Like we,
That was an overdue change.
yeah,
Yeah.
that lit the car up. And the problem was all the cars around us were getting faster, and we were still at 220 horse, and that doesn't work, you know?
But if you think about it, everybody talks about racing, and all the amateurs go horsepower, 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 right? And we put horsepower last. And
Yeah.
that was, engineer to win. That was Mark Donahue. That was everybody
Mhm.
who said, get your chassis set up, get your suspension, get your steering, get your car really neutral. And then you start adding incrementally the horsepower. And that's what you did
Yeah.
with Jim.
Yeah.
So when the Challenge Series went to 300 horse plus with trick flow heads and all
Yeah.
that,
The
those
cars
cars were
were
fast.
handling on rails, and they were
Pro-
so predictable. It's incredible. Like the Cobra, I could drive backwards, forwards with my eyes closed. Like,
Well, you'll see it, Dave, in the
yeah,
video. I mean, just really confidence
yeah,
inspiring when you're driving a car
right.
that gives that kind of feedback. That's how the cars are now, but
Mhm,
that came from your development with Jim.
yeah. I remember we did an enduro, a 1 hour enduro
Mhm.
with NASA at Pocono,
Okay.
and it's like a roll kind of deal. So Jim and I were hauling butt, nose to tail the whole way. We would draft by 3 times, I think, down the straightaways. And Brian uh, Casella, the son of the owner that runs NASA Northeast,
Hmm.
he was standing at the pit out. He's like, "You two clowns, every freaking lap, we're shifting at exactly the same point, exactly the same time."
Spec cars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was incredible. So anyway, the neutrality of no, not
Yeah.
neutrality.
Equality. They were just pretty
Yeah,
well matched
it's
cars.
yeah.
I think that's where you formed your friendship with Jim really on the track.
Mm,
And when you race with people who you trust, you get to be friends. And Jim trusts your feedback. At the end of the Challenge Series, you were
mhm.
running SGT. What's it called? What was
ST2,
ST2, right?
ST2.
That was with NASA.
Yep.
Were you competitive nationals? Were you top 10? Were you?
Initially, the car is an aero brick, so we had to do something about it. So working with the gym, we said, okay, let's get some aero. So we did the front splitter, rear wing, tonneau cover on the passenger side, and then we started winning some races. I was really close with Adrian Wolstowski,
Hmm.
who's running T2 right now,
Yeah.
and him and I, he was in a Corvette, I was in the Cobra. At the twisty tracks, I would eat him alive. At the longer tracks,
Horsepower
he would
age.
kill me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, what do I do now? Because I can't get any faster.
Well, it's funny
So
how.
in
Wait, I'm
ST2
sorry. Go ahead.
nationals, I think it was 2006. I won nationals in ST2. That was
Awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Was it Mid Ohio?
No, it was Watkins Glen, and it was pure luck.
Which is a pretty fast
It was
track.
pure
Yeah.
luck because Adrian and BMW were going at it
Yeah.
in front of me. I was in
I
third
think they took
the
themselves
whole
out, didn't
race,
they?
and they took themselves out on the last lap.
Unless, yeah.
I was like,
So they did a
said the
Lagan on the
doors
last lap.
opened. I sneaked right in. They're
Yeah.
spinning. I'm like, whoo, this is awesome. So pure luck.
If you
But
want to finish first you have to finish, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Um, More
But
importantly, though, from a business standpoint, while you're out on the track with Jim, I'm, kind of running the development and the growth of the company.
mhm.
And what we saw on the track with the Cobra is it was running out of steam. You know, all the aero that you guys did. I remember who was the guy that ran Pikes Peak? Ed.
Oh, Pat McMahon,
No, I thought it was Ed Boothman.
not Ed Boothman.
No,
Ed Boothman did the 25-hour races at Thunderhill.
out west. Right,
Yeah,
right. Oh, right. Because you had at the time,
yeah,
oh eight,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
nine came 25 hours.
Right, right, right,
And we
right.
did do a lot of development out there. But what we kind of came to the conclusion is, and Jim was pretty busy launching the 818 and the development of the 818. So there was business on this side. But while you were running your challenge car in other basically classes
Hmm.
and learning more, we kind of figured out that the Cobra was topped out.
Yeah,
It's if you look at modern cars, aerodynamics and downforce, without that, you can only go so fast. I mean, the last spec challenge car, our Cobras, were running faster than any original Cobra ever ran at any
hmm,
track,
yeah,
except for Dick Smith 198. So
yeah.
we didn't have
That's because we don't have the power.
yeah, he had a
330 horse
no, he had
can
a
only get you that fast.
yeah, he had a
You know?
650, 700
Yeah.
horse,
Well,
427, but still aero, right?
yeah.
You can't turn without
The
aero.
second we put aero on my Cobra, I
Mhm.
stopped sawing at the wheel. It was incredible. It was like night and day.
But it was also
And Jim
ugly.
and Mark were like, "Who is this driver? Like, why are you so smooth? I don't get it." And it makes sense, you know?
You say, but to get that downforce, closing off the cockpit, a
Yeah.
big ugly rear wing. I remember one of the ideas was to put the rear wing on the roll bar. It
Yeah.
looked like a circle track car. And yeah,
Well, we tried that on Ed's car.
yeah, yes,
We
yes,
put the
that's where I
wing
was thinking.
up right above it because Ed's car had like two roll bars because we endured the crap out of it. And the wing was up there. We did a test at New Hampshire and my helmet started picking up. Like,
Yeah,
really?
right.
Like, I couldn't see because my glasses were going up, you know? It was nuts. So we're like, oh, yeah, that wing doesn't work there, you know?
It was also really ugly. And
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you're on a track. I don't care how fast you are. You got to look cool too.
yeah,
And it's part of the fun, right? I mean, it's amateur racing.
yeah,
The coupe was a natural candidate. And Jim and I were talking about the coupe platform because the coupe sales, streetcar sales, which is really where we pay our bills,
yeah,
were starting to fall off, right?
mm,
And the coupe went from, 50 or 60 cars a year to like 20 and 15.
yeah,
So we knew we had to redesign the coupe. But Jim's philosophy was if we can let go of the original chassis
yeah.
and engineer a proper space frame, Jim's like, if you will let me put a lot more money into the coupe than
Mm.
the coupe would merit.
Well, the
And I said,
stuff
why?
that they learned from building the GTM, you know?
Oh, that went right into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Take that concept, the frame, and put it in the coupe
And
and
develop the crap out of it
learn
with
all
a
the
driver
stuff.
you
Yeah,
trust,
right.
right?
You know?
So you started developing the coupe. I put more money into the coupe because I knew that from a chassis engineering standpoint,
Mm,
we were going to take that coupe and we're going to stretch the wheelbase for the new F9.
yep,
So now we'd reduce the number of tubing we're cutting.
yeah.
Our welding and fabrication and production would be standardized. So it was a long-term plan and it happened just like we thought. So
Yeah.
let's pick up. You're mostly done with your Cobra. You went about as fast as you could.
I realize I can't compete against the Corvettes and BMWs. They're too slippery. The Cobras are just a brick. So I'm like, okay, what did Shelby do? He made
Daytona Coupe, brother.
Daytona Coupe.
Yeah.
So let's do the same thing, you know?
And sometimes in business when things just kind of work out, timing
Mm,
works out, the development on the Gen 3 coupe
right.
started and Jim was like, "Well, I'd like to do it with John."
Yeah.
And so you were a partner in the development of that car from I think you drove the prototype.
Yeah.
We
We
went
did
to N
testing of the
car.
car
Yep, yep. So
and
tell
at
me how
Canam.
that coupe work started and where it ended up. Because now you're in Europe, you're not racing other than Sims. So we ended right before COVID is when we ended, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how did the prototype start and where did you drive it? What was the first feedback? Was it a freight pig? How was the Gen 3 coupe right out of the box?
Right out of the box, it was fast. And it just felt a lot more comfortable, a lot more solid because, well, it's way stiffer. So the suspension is actually doing its work. So it was just a natural progression to go from the Cobra to the Coupe. So
When you drove to NCAR, what was your first feedback? Did you know this is a platform that you could go a lot faster with?
yeah, you just feel it.
And had we done aero at that point? Had we done it in the wind tunnel?
No,
So you were doing basically the
no.
coupe was faster without aero.
We did wind tunnel with my car.
Hmm. Oh, with your yeah,
Yeah,
the Cobra. And
yeah.
we found out
No,
that
no,
it's a
no, no,
turret.
no. With the Daytona Coupe,
Oh,
with
okay, okay.
my Daytona Coupe.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice because the car that you're racing, you did the wind tunnel with. So we learned a lot there.
Yeah.
And then we went on track. and it was very good to start with.
Well, if you think about it, it's got a longer wheelbase. The chassis was from the Mark III
It was
spec
like
racer.
7 times stiffer or something than the
Yeah,
Cobra.
yeah, 17,000 pounds versus 3,800.
Yeah.
So and that was the street car. The race coupe chassis went from your Cobra. I think your Challenge Series Cobra is closer to 5,000 pounds for 2 degrees of deflection, torsional rigidity. The Daytona Coupe race, the R version, was 35,000.
Yeah.
So 7 times stiffer.
Yeah.
So now your
It was,
suspension's working. We're running Coney at that rate, right?
yes.
Who were the sponsors on the first gen, the Gen 3 Coupe when you were running on the track? What were the parts that were on it? You're running a
I was
Coyote at that point?
running truck motor Coyote
Okay,
right
so
from the junkyard.
385 horse.
Yeah. And I had some issues with that because the valve spring sucked, and I found out about that way later after I popped 3 or 4 motors.
Yeah.
And because of the aero, it was getting a lot more G-forces, and I needed the dry sump, and that's
So we
where
had
you
some
helped
oiling
out.
issues
Yeah,
because of side loads. Yeah.
right. You know, I oiling issues really. I had struggled with the Coyotes to get those to work right.
But we were not in production yet, were
No,
we, of the Gen 3 Coupe? So when did you get your Gen 3 Coupe?
right away.
2016, maybe?
No, 17.
17, right?
We got it in December, I think, right before New Year's or right after Christmas or something. And then I went to Mark Doherty's house, and we built it all together. Me,
With a
Mark, and
junkyard truck
Brendan.
motor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we took it out of the old challenge car,
Yeah.
and I sold the frame to to oh, what is his name?
I don't
I'm
know.
drawing a blank.
So you sold your
Mike
Challenge Series
Forte.
car. You sold to Forte?
Forte bought the rolling chassis.
Yeah.
My old Cobra is still at Forte's.
I got to talk. And Forte knows, he goes back to Trans Am racing and
Yeah, yeah,
Can-Am back in the days in the 70s because he's old like me.
yeah.
But, Forte drives me nuts because he's like me. I can't get a word in edgewise. I mean, the guy will talk for 3 hours,
Yeah, he's
he knows
cool.
more
He's
about
cool.
engines. Yeah, he's a great guy. On track 2017, 2018 then.
20 no, well, 2017 we built it,
Yeah.
and then the first track day was at VIR, and right out of the box, 2-minute lap time
You
on
ran a 2-minute at
on
VIR.
Hoosier A7s,
All right.
245 Hoosier A7s with 365 horse.
Okay, so whether it's Watkins Glen, the Glen and VIR are kind
Yeah,
of very similar lap times. A
identical
2-minute
almost.
lap time is kind of like, it
The
separates.
holy grail.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
everything after that is $250,000 road race
Mhm.
cars. Before that is Amit. So you must have been stoked.
Oh, I was like,
Ultimate power.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, not an
Yeah,
ultimate
you're a
power, but
385 horse at this
yeah.
point.
No, 365 at the wheels.
Truck motor,
Yeah,
Coyote truck motor.
yeah.
Yeah, but good torque too.
Decent torque.
Yeah.
I played with the torque curve in the computer and stuff like that because the whole thing about ST2 was the horsepower curve. It had to be flat. So we tweaked some stuff in the computer.
Yeah.
Which was good because the Corvette guys were doing it. So
But
I
all
was
the way
able to
through
do it
this
as well.
process, race after race, you're working with Jim on feedback, on shocks, on tires, on springs.
Yeah.
You kind of got the chassis with power steering. I think you guys added sway bars.
Yep. Front
Where
and
the
rear
Gen
sway
3
bars.
Coupe is today is because of the foundation that you laid with Jim and the engineering group.
Well, it
And
started with the Challenge Series.
Oh,
We added
built
sway
on that,
bars
no
on the
doubt.
Challenge Series when we added the power,
Yeah.
and then we continued with the coupe.
But the Coupe had an IRS. We had developed the IRS and the Mark
Yes.
IV.
Oh, the
And actually,
IRS
you
is
you
sweet
did the development of the IRS. That was at NCAR.
with the Cobra.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
we switched my car from 3-link to
Yeah.
IRS.
Yes.
And that was painful to do because it wasn't meant to.
No, it's the worst thing
Yeah.
that, I think you and Wayne Presley did it, and both of you were like risking our friendship over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, I came down here, and I think Andy or I don't know who welded it.
Maybe
And
John Dean helped.
John Dean, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you got an IRS coupe. You're running 2 minutes at VIR.
yeah.
And where did you end with the coupe with Jim and with your own car? Because I got great shots of you. I think you ran a 55-second
We did
lap time at Lime
UTCC.
Rock. Yep. Okay.
We did UTCC with Michelin slicks with my coupe. I think I bumped it went from 365 to 370 horse because I removed the ST2 tune.
I'm trying to remember. It was 2018 or 2019. Ultimate
2018.
Track Car Challenge. did I have Presley with the 818?
Yes.
Because remember, we had development
Yes.
2
Yeah,
parallel
yeah.
tracks.
Yep.
The 818 was the goal was to go under 2 minutes,
Yep.
right? Yeah, with the 818, we had gone
Yeah.
55 seconds. I remember because Larry Webster called me from Lime Rock. He goes, "Hey, Dave, I'm at the debut." Oh, yeah. He had the C7 Corvette out,
Yeah.
and he ran under a minute at VIR, under a minute at Lime Rock. So Larry Webster calls me, and he goes, "Smith, we just ran under a minute with a Corvette C7
Yeah.
at Lime Rock."
The
I'm like,
challenge cars were doing that.
yeah, I'm
Easy.
like, "Hey, that's great because I think our guys are out there, and we ran 55 seconds." So
Yeah.
Larry was like, you know, he
I
actually
wanted a
liked the 1.8
54. I don't know if I got to 54.
with your Coupe or the 818.
No, with 18. That
Yeah.
thing was a rocket ship. Holy crap. Except the engine kept having issues. And that's the pain
We never
point
got
about
past
the,
it.
yeah.
The engine would blow up when
Yeah.
you see. We were used to the 5-liter, the old Mustang motor.
Yeah.
You could get to 450 horse like this, right? And it
Yeah.
would not blow up.
Right.
Yeah, it's a 2.5-liter engine. The Subaru it's asking a lot to get 450 horse out of it, right? And so we were blowing up head gaskets. You blew up one with a turbo.
Yeah.
Didn't it get stuck at VIR?
Yeah.
You had like 50 pounds of boost for about
Yeah.
6 seconds.
And it stopped.
Then it blew up.
Yeah.
When did we run? I think I went up with Cheney. I drove up an early morning up to
Canon?
yeah.
Or was it?
No, it's the new park. It was brand new track.
Oh. No,
It
not
wasn't
Palmer.
Maxton. Not Maxton.
No.
I want to say Canaan.
No. Club Motorsport.
No, it wasn't Club Motorsports.
It wasn't?
No. We're just
Then
wasting
it was
time here.
Canan.
No.
Canan, whatever you say it. It was in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All I know is we got kicked off because there was no passing without point buys, and we were stuck behind that guy with a Lotus, who's the chairman of COM. It was a COM
Oh.
event, and you had the 818 that was going to Ultimate Track Car Challenge.
Yeah.
And I had my old coupe, and we were stuck behind this guy. And finally, I saw you going. I'm like, if he's going, I'm going, right?
Yeah.
But we got to the Ultimate Track Car Challenge. It must have been 2018
Yeah.
because I hired Presley to drive the 818.
Right.
You had QC.
Right.
And you had your coupe.
Yep.
How did you do?
157. I was faster than the 18.
Yeah. We just made it under
But
2 minutes.
we worked data-wise because we're running both of the same data loggers. So Wayne leaned on my data and I leaned on his data to see where we're faster, we're slower. And we got Wayne under 2 minutes.
Yep.
We got mine under, I think, 157 or whatever it was. It was awesome.
Okay. I remember that because I was on the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
Without your data logging help, Wayne would not have gotten under 2 minutes because everybody was dropping off through the day because it was hot.
Yeah.
The fastest sessions were in the morning.
Yes.
And you ran, I think 157 was your best.
Yeah.
Fast.
It's
but as the day got hotter.
It's a difficult event because the UTCC is on a Friday. So you really don't have any test day before that. You know? Sure. I think we did a Thursday test day, but
But we're still junkyard truck motor.
Yeah.
We're still a car that is mostly development car.
Yeah.
And when I saw 157, I'm like, this is capable of running competitively in Trans Am for sure. It's a good 2-frame race car. I knew that the development was done. Wayne was at 204 or something, 203.
Yeah.
And you shared your data. And I think he told me that because he hadn't really been around VIR a lot. So you knew the track.
VR is difficult to learn.
17, 20 turns. It's 3.5
I've been
miles,
there
right?
a ton of times. We did a bunch of enduros there as well. So,
well, I think by sharing the data, you showed him he could go through the climbing S's like 10 miles or faster.
Stop
right?
lifting.
And he did, and there was the 159.9.
Yeah.
And I hung up with Wayne at the end of the day. I said, Wayne, that's why I paid you. Get under 2 minutes. That was the goal. And he did it. You helped him with that.
Yeah.
Where's your coupe now? I mean, you finished your development. You raced it. You had a bunch of good times with it. What happened? You got married and went to Europe.
Yeah, I got married, went to Europe, moved to Europe. I sold the coupe. I went to a guy in Tennessee, I think. And now he actually went overseas. So he sold the coupe. Maybe it's the thing with that coupe.
No, it's the death of every great car guy. I have a feeling as a girl was involved.
I think so. Yeah. So now the coupe's in Ohio somewhere. And I think it's very close to Mid-Ohio. And the guy that has it now is going to run it a heck of a lot at Mid-Ohio. So I'm thrilled that it's out there and it's still racing. So,
well, John, I wasn't forthright with one of the reasons you're here is we're talking about the future. And I was talking to Jim, and John's over in Europe. What are you doing right now? IT 1010 type stuff? I
Yep.
mean, yep. But you got a girl and you're happy?
Yeah. We get married.
Yeah.
Things are good.
She okay if you get back behind the wheel?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got some exciting new stuff coming out down the road. And Jim was like, I think, for a development engineer to have a driver who can give him feedback that he trusts, yeah, data acquisition's great, but
Hmm.
seat of the pants, you know,
Yeah.
person to person communication. We are going to be working on a mid engine platform car. Um, it's going to need a lot. The goal is to, like, if you look at what we did with the GTM was essentially I mean, horsepower weight of the GTM was a Daytona prototype,
Yeah.
but we never did enough testing on it because we were terrified of the car. It was too fast.
Hmm.
So I said to Jim, I want to build a too fast mid engine car. Um, Either that or we go back to the F9.
Hmm.
We've got to get racing back into our DNA. We can talk about COVID all we want, but at the end of the day, um, you going to help us?
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah, good answer.
Put me in, coach. Put me in.
We'll talk about the next car as soon as we can. You can probably guess it if you think about the great mid-engine cars in the past, but we're working on it in earnest. I think it's going to be early for us to have a prototype by next year.
Yeah.
Maybe by the end of next year, we'll be able to do that. But it's pick up the phone, grab your helmet and your gear, fly over,
Yeah.
spend a 4-day weekend down at VIR or NCAR or one of those tracks. Um,
Easy.
I'm looking forward to it, John, and I know that Jim trusts you and your feedback. Um, Between now and then, how are you going to keep your skills up?
Sim racing. All the pro guys are doing it.
All right, tell me, because I'm not doing it. Maybe I should, because I haven't been, 2019 was the last time I raced.
So I got VR. I'm like the headset thing that you put on your face.
Yeah.
It's super immersive. Like you're in there, and it's so good these days. It's like you're in. Like the first time I got in there, I'm like, where are my seatbelts? Like I don't. I need to be bolted in the seat. Like
Mhm.
it gives you that whole sensation. And
You said Borden was running with a gimbal on his seat.
yeah, no, he has a whole seat movement thingy majiggy. I don't know what the heck it's called,
But you're
but
saying it's actually like we did a fundraiser, I think it was 2019.
yeah,
It was the last time I was down at VIR. And the reason I agreed to it was okay, I'm going to be driving all day long, taking customers out
mhm,
for hot laps, right?
that's
I
cool.
get to memorize the track.
Yeah,
So for me, and it was fun, but I started to forget that I had a pastor with me. I was going a little too fast, and I got a big responsibility. But can you memorize a track? Can you learn braking points? Can you really get to the point where when you get in the car, you know the track?
being in the sim and in VR, you get the two, screens. So
Yeah.
it's the depth of field and the elevation change. It's there now. It's in the game. It's mind-boggling.
Do you think it translates to better skills on the track?
Heck yeah. When
Yeah.
I first went to Road Atlanta, I played on the Xbox.
Yeah.
I raced over and over and over at Road Atlanta on the Xbox,
Yeah.
which is not
And
how
it's
the
a lot
sim
better
is.
now.
Oh, huge, night and day. And when I got to Road Atlanta, I knew exactly where the track was, where to turn. The only
How about
issue,
car? How about car? I mean, you're driving it. Can you set up a car with horsepower, weight, torque, wheel balance, all,
you have a selection of
weight
all the
distribution?
cars, and you can play with all the settings: camber, caster, tow.
What are you driving right now, Sims?
We
Corvette.
usually do, what is it, GT3 cars or GT4 cars.
Okay.
So Mustangs,
Right.
the new Mustang is in the sim right now.
All right.
We
All right.
we've been leaning on that, and the new Corvette C8, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The mid-engine
yeah,
Corvette. Yeah. And the mid-engine Corvette was one of the reasons why we discontinued the GTM. I mean, for the longest time,
yeah.
the GTM was the mid-engine Corvette option.
Exactly.
And once the C8 came out, I mean, it's a heck of a car.
You can't compete with that.
Yeah, it's a lot of car for the money.
Yeah.
And I think on the track, they're doing really well.
Mhm.
So we'd like to come back at the mid-engine platform. We'd like your help. We can wrap up here. You've been really generous. I know you got to fly back to Europe and put your wooden shoes back on. Can you race with wooden shoes in Holland?
No,
Where is it? It's not Holland, is it?
it's Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brussels.
So you eat your Brussels sprouts, you get on to Holland, you pick
Yeah,
some tulips, you put your wooden shoes on, and then you fly back here and you get to race. So what we established here is that I'm gonna dedicate myself to a little bit of Sims
there you go.
and get a little bit more current just to keep my skills up because donuts in the parking lot with customers are fun and everything, but It doesn't help your skills.
Mm,
So I'll do that. And on the development path with Jim, I think your feeling on the Coupe-R, where it is right now, is you still think there's a little meat on the bone to get because it's come pretty far.
yeah. So
You're
we
talking about
left off with everything but suspension and undercar aero and the rear diffuser.
okay, so suspension and a little bit of aero.
Yeah.
And
And I
you
think
think
there's a lot of time gained with the suspension.
and a lot of guys that have been racing
I
have
know.
changed to more expensive shocks. You know,
Yeah.
Coney's our sponsor. They've been great.
Right.
But here's what I want to do. When you get back from, wooden shoe land and Europe, and do they, I'm not going to make fun of you. Never mind. I mean, are you used to small displacement cars now? Are you kind of happy there?
You have to be because there's speed cameras everywhere, so you can't go fast anyway.
Oh, that's right.
It's
Yeah.
stupid. Like, really, everyone does the speed limit because they're afraid of getting a ticket, and you just get it in the mail. Like, you don't even know if you got one. It shows up like a month later, and there you
Well,
go. 130 euros. Pay it,
and I'm not
sucker.
advocating speeding. It's just kind of nice that if you
Right.
accidentally go over 100 miles an hour on the highway, you're not going to, in this case, you're going to get a ticket in the mail
It's going to be a huge ticket.
or got to show up at your house.
Yeah.
So looking forward, there's a little bit of development left on the coupe that we can play around with, but
Yes.
I'd rather use the coupe as kind of our benchmark.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can tweak it a bit, get that last 5%. I'm not going to put a set of $10,000 shocks on the car. I'm not going to want to go to that extreme
Right.
because that's not where our customers are. And I think the car has a performance envelope that is really good.
Yep.
But I want your help on the mid-engine car. And what we'll do is we'll finish off. And it sounds like you kind of want to finish off the coupe.
I do.
Yeah.
It's
Just
an unfinished project.
Well, let's finish the coupe and let's get the bulk of the engineering and driving experience on the mid-engine chassis on the prototype.
Yeah.
And that way, when we go to production, we have a car that is, the goal is real simple. I want a car that is plug and play. Obviously, we'll do a street version,
Yeah.
and that's been our convention, like
Right.
the coupe and the Coupe-R, the Cobra and the Cobra R.
Mhm.
We did that with the 8018. What I want to do with the mid-engine cars, we'll have a street version, but the race version, I want that car to be capable of jumping into um, probably Trans Am. For me, Trans Am is kind of the home where I see most of our
Like
cars landing.
SGT class, probably.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if you think 150 at VIR, I think you can help us.
Absolutely.
All right, let's do that and stay in touch. And John, I really appreciate it. I mean,
Sure.
your story is the story of Factory 5. The reason why people are so romantic about Cobras and Daytona Coupes is it was the end of an era of privateers being able to compete on the world stage.
Yep.
We can't. I talked to Logano. Okay, that's a multi-million dollar industry. And I'm not talking about Formula One. NASCAR, every racing series today has so much money in it. You go to 24 hours of Rolex, these cars are $250,000 on up and $250,000 is low, right? Um, where we want to go is we want to recapture that amateur road racing kind of spirit and ethos with modern engineering. And your story, it's the story of our company. And we just had a podcast with Chris Hine,
Mhm.
and he's running 8.3 seconds in a quarter mile with a Factory 5 hot rod. And he calls me up and he wants to do 7 seconds. He wants to be under 7 seconds.
That's nuts.
And he's doing it without a $500,000 bank account, right?
Right.
So that's Factory 5, man, and I'm really excited. I think that you can help us a ton, and I just want to say thanks for all the years that you've, guys right now are driving cars that you helped us develop, and you got to take a lot of pride in that, man.
It's cool.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Anything you want to tell Jim? Anything you want to tell the development team?
I love you, man.
Well, we miss you, John, and right on.
Uh-huh.
So, looking forward, John. Tell us what we can expect in terms of support. How many days, weeks? Can you come out on 3-day weekends? What do you got?
Whatever you need, I'll do.
You serious?
So yeah.
Sounds like you have a little more vacation in Europe
I
than
have a
here.
lot of vacation time, so
Do they work?
they take pretty much the whole summer off. It's weird. Like the
So
whole place,
development
like
testing summer is
August.
good.
Yeah, August, September. There's no one working. It's weird. Everyone's on vacation.
That's awesome.
So
John, across the years, thank you, man. And I think our best days are ahead of us. Our fastest days are definitely ahead of us, especially with you in the driver's seat doing development testing with our guys. So thank you, man.
can't wait to be part of the
All
plan.
right. Thanks, man. Yeah. So, guys, Dave Smith, Factor 5 podcast, solid car guys. John George here. We're going to look forward to some fast times ahead. Thanks for being here. And, John, we had a tradition that we were going to do to check out something fast, but you don't have time. You got to get back to the airport. But thanks for coming, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Dave Lindsay, and thanks for checking out this episode of Solid Car Guys. This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The opinions shared by the hosts, guests, and participants are their own and do not reflect the views of Factory 5 Racing or any affiliated companies. The content is not professional advice, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. Neither Factory 5 Racing, the host, nor the guests are responsible for any loss, injury, or damages. Always seek professional advice for vehicle builds, safety, and regulations. Racing and modifications carry inherent risks. On behalf of Factory 5 Racing, build and drive responsibly.